Welcome to Two Humans Talking, the podcast that discusses the challenges of staying healthy in today's modern, fast-paced world. I'm Tiffany Simms, your holistic wellness coach, and today I am with Michelle Steiner, who is a paraeducator and disability advocate, and her and I are going to just dive into what it's like having a learning disability and navigating the world with maybe some of those unseen disabilities that some of us are struggling with, and many of us don't recognize because you can't see them. And so I'm really excited about our conversation today to shine light on that, Michelle. So Michelle, if you don't mind, share with the people who you are, where you live, like what makes you you.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Tiffany. My name is Michelle Steiner. I live in Pennsylvania with my husband Ron and our two cats, Jack and Sparrow. And
I
I
love
am
it.
a yeah. I'm a paraeducator in a school, and I work with students with and without disabilities. And I'm also a disability writer, speaker, photographer, and I have my blog called Michelle's Mission, where I blog about life with a learning disability and feature my photography that I take from a lot of my walks because I'm unable to drive, and I have a learning disability myself.
That is so awesome. I know we talked about before we hit record that you get
Hmm.
out for walks. That's like your way to
Hmm.
get into nature and get your body moving. And
Yeah.
that you might have a little bit of a superpower of being able to see things that people don't. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about that?
Sure. A lot of times, people will comment, you bring out details in a flower that I would miss. And a lot of times I'll be in the car with my husband and I'll say, did you see that? And he'll be like, no, I'm focused on the road. And he's getting a little bit better about that because I talk about that a lot on this. But I'll notice a flower, or I'll notice a cool building or something just really out of the ordinary. But if I was in the car being driving, I would miss that. And late sometimes I get that chance to, if it's something local, I get that opportunity to be able to go and take a picture of that flower or that whatever unique thing is out there. And if I was sitting in the car driving, that's something I would miss. So I definitely love doing that.
That's so cool. And I think it's really cool that you then take those little gems and you put them out into the world for other people to experience and even earn income off of, which, hello, double win,
Yeah.
spreading joy, earning income. Like that's how the world works. Have you
Right.
always been into walking?
Definitely. I've always loved to walk and I've always did that. My parents lived out in the country, so we would do a lot. I would do a lot of that. And I always like to do that. I always like to work out. I live near a gym and I'm there on a daily basis almost. Yeah. And you'll see me there. And I've always been into that. And I knew that as much as I love walking, I knew that if I stayed out in the country with my parents or an area where I couldn't drive, I would be really limited. So I had no problems whenever I moved into an area where you could walk to places.
I'm kind of jealous. The only place I can walk is around my neighborhood. I live in the country, and so
Uh-huh.
like there's
Yeah.
there's no walking to the store. It's one of my favorite things to do when I visit a new
Hmm.
city, or a city in general, is being able to like walk out of the hotel and
Yep.
walk anywhere. There has been times where I used to work in nuclear power, commercial nuclear
Uh-huh.
power. And so there would be times I'd have to go to Philly for work, and I would walk a mile to the office. And everyone's like, "Why didn't you Uber?" And I'm like, "Why would I Uber when I could walk like
Yeah, exactly.
down a sidewalk for like a mile and
Right.
see
Yeah,
everyone and be curious?"
because if you have an area that you can do that, because you can really explore that area. And yeah, exactly. I love doing that. And sometimes when my coworker is not able to give me a ride home at my school, I'm able to walk from home from work at the end of the day. So, and people are like, well, why do you want to walk? And I'm thinking, well, because it's
Because
nice.
I
I
can.
definitely appreciate the ride, but if I have the opportunity and it's a nice day out, why wouldn't I want to go and walk and be able to do that?
Walking is so
Mhm.
underrated.
Yeah.
Like, people think it's a waste of time, like, oh, if they need to lose weight, it's like walking won't be enough, or they want to get healthy and it's like, no, I must go to the gym. I love the gym, don't get me wrong, but
Mhm.
like walking is such a gift. And it's a
Right.
gift that a lot of people as they get older wish they still had access to.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a nice thing to be able to be able to do, and I just feel that with taking pictures, I get both benefits of that physical and having that mental thing or that creative side that I get to do.
Yeah, I am so when I was out on my run earlier, so I walk my
Mhm.
dog as part of my like to warm my
Aw.
body up. And then so she gets some exercise in, and then I
Yeah.
go for a run. In my brain, like it's firing off. Like that is I'm not a super creative person, but when I am outside being active, like the creativity is unmatched. But I
Mhm.
digress. I feel like I totally got told you it would be like a conversation, didn't I?
Love
Now you mentioned that you
it.
don't drive. Is that by choice or because of your disability or
It is because of my disability. I have dyscalculia, which is a math disability, and but it also affects other parts. Like I'm not able, I confuse my right from my left, and I don't understand directions like east, south, and west. But the biggest thing is I also have visual perception issues. And that is not with my eyes, that is with my brain. And we always knew I was really uncoordinated when I was a young child. Gym class was a nightmare. I can remember having the ball would come in contact with me and I would flinch and I was just not coordinated. And I love doing non-competitive fitness activities, love group exercise classes, love, walking, going to the gym, yoga, those sort of things. But I could not play volleyball or baseball or all those things that we would do. And my parents thought, okay, well, you're just not going to be an athlete kind of deal. But we also knew, but going into that, they also thought, well, driving might be a challenge when I was a teenager. So the first thing they did was they had me wait a year just to kind of see if my brain would mature or just to see how things would go. I wasn't one of the ones getting my learner's permit when I turned 16. And because they knew it might be an issue for me. And I can remember in that waiting, they decided, okay, well, let's have you do a couple things around the house. We lived down the country and we had a big field, and they decided, well, why don't you go mow the field? And instead of making those nice, perfect straight lines, I ended up making crop circles. So the mystery of where crop circles come from has been solved. And then my mom decided, well, let's see if you can go up the driveway in the car. And thankfully, she was in the car with me, or else we would have crashed right into the right into the garage door. So
oh
my
my
mom, yeah. So my parents were thinking, well, this is just beyond being non-athletic or being coordinated. This could be an issue. So one of the things they had me do is I got tested at a rehabilitation hospital to see if I could drive. And I passed every single thing. I knew what to do if I had a flat tire. I understood just the cost of gas, those things, just all those things you would do with driving. Passed the vision test. I mean, my vision was 20/20, and then we got to the visual perception part, and I couldn't do it, and they said, well, we don't recommend that you get your license because of that. And it was just like 100 pounds were lifted off my shoulders at that point because I was concerned myself. I knew that,
just
yeah,
about.
I can trip over air, and I didn't never wanted to hurt anybody else with that. So that's when we decided to. But legally, I can get my license. It's just I choose not to because of knowing that, having that
That's
information.
really great awareness on your parents' part because I think a lot of parents, I don't know that a lot of parents are that aware because it would just be like, my kid is ditzy, or,
Yeah.
like, she can't put two and two together. She's just clumsy. But for them to be like, you know what? Like, this is beyond like normal amounts of like inattention and clumsiness
Mhm.
or forgetfulness. Like, there might be something here. Let's go get her evaluated.
Right, and
Now,
they did that when I was a child too, and they so they knew about that, but we didn't know how it was going to affect. But yeah,
that's
definitely
so
my parents had a lot
good
of
for them.
awareness.
Now, did you mention that like you felt like a weight was lifted off of you? How did your life change with getting the diagnosis for the learning disability and someone being like, we don't really recommend driving in these type of activities for you? Like, did your life change? Did your perception change? Like,
It just felt like a lot I had a lot of concerns with myself, and my life really didn't change a whole lot. I can remember I had a wonderful group of friends who were a couple years older than I was, and they were young adults, and they always picked me up to take me places, and they never gave me a lot of hassle. Now, some of my peers that I went to school with were like, "Are you driving yet? And why don't you want to get your license?" They couldn't understand it, but some of the young adults could. Maybe a little bit in the beginning. They said, "Well, we can see you driving when you get older," and then it just became, "Well, this just isn't how it's going to be," and they were fine with that. But they were wonderful about picking me up, taking me places. So I didn't feel really left out. And my parents were great for taking me places too. But I think it was just easier on everybody when I moved into a place where I could walk because my parents had things that they wanted to do. They worked, they had their social events. And I think I wanted to have that independence to be able to have what I wanted to do as well. So it just works a lot better. But that really didn't change. It changed a little more when I moved out of the country because I was able to be able to walk where I wanted to. But great family, great friends. I couldn't have asked for a better support system with it.
that's so cool. Now you mentioned that you have dyscalculia. Right?
Yes.
Can you, so my brother also has dyscalculia, but for
Uh-huh.
those
Okay.
people who are unaware, do you mind sharing with people like what that is? Because I think people hear dyslexia and they don't actually know what that is either, but they think they have an idea of it, but no one
Right.
really hears about dyscalculia. So can you share about that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I have dyscalculia or however you pronounce it, and it's a math learning disability. So it's not that I see numbers backwards. I can see them for how they're supposed to be, but I struggle with how numbers work. For example, when I was really young in kindergarten, I couldn't count very well. I also had to when I still have not memorized all my addition, subtraction, and multiplication facts. I can't read the an analog clock, so I need a digital watch to do
Mm.
that. I can't total up how much I'm spending in the grocery store, and it's always a surprise to me when I get to the register, which I'm sure it is for everybody, but it really is for me if I use a debit or a credit card. But if I use cash, I can visualize a 20 and I can see the dollars, and it's still a surprise, but I get a range of how much I can spend rather than if I have a debit card because that's more abstract. Uh, and then there's just other things. The directional concepts are hard. I can't tell you if you tell me to go east or south, I'm really confused on that. And the visual perception kind of goes in with that too. And also hand dexterity. That is another part. But I mean, it's almost like one of those things that's it's separate, but it's also part of having a disability. We thought I was just clumsy with the visual perception and everything else. And then as an adult, I was being evaluated for having a learning disability. And that was one of the things that came up as well.
Was dexterity and
Like, yeah, I have very severe in both of my hands compared to um, a patient that had a stroke. And they claim that, yeah, the things like picking up things, that things would fall out of my hands. And I always had terrible handwriting as well. And we thought, oh, okay, learning disability. And that could be part of it. Yeah, and, unlocking doors, I mean, those are some things that come up.
so things that are like floating through my head while you're talking are like, so I don't have kids, so I've never been a parent and I've
Mhm,
never had to be faced with my kid
mhm,
being diagnosed with anything and
right.
whatever emotional stuff that comes up with that. But when I think about like growing up with my peers and then like my friends who are parents now, like I don't know why there's such stigma about getting diagnoses, because all I hear is like there's a reason, like if I there's a reason why all these things are happening, and it's not because I'm broken or dumb or stupid
Right.
or clumsy,
Mhm.
but there's an actual reason, which then like opens the door. I imagine that then opens the doors to all of these tools and resources and
Mhm.
possibilities, because now we're going to approach things differently. Like I think that if I was struggling, I would actually want there to be someone to say, this is why this is happening, so that we can then like work with it. And that would be like a weight lifted off of me.
Exactly. And I was very lucky that I was diagnosed with having one when I was in kindergarten. And that was really revolutionary because we were just a few years past having a lot of legislation passed that students with disabilities would get services. But we still didn't know a lot about learning disabilities, especially ones based in math. And I didn't get the diagnosis of having dyscalculia until I was an adult, and even then, it came up as math, handicap, that's what's on the form, but, we knew I wasn't gonna be a mathematician. That was one of the things. My dad remembers going to that meeting
Girl,
whenever I was
math is
very.
not for her. Not
Yeah,
for him.
exactly, and he couldn't understand. I mean, in the beginning, it was hard for him to understand. Part of it was the time period that he went to school where you either got it, or if you didn't get it,
There's just
then
such a stigma. It's like
yeah,
all of a sudden it's like, no, if this is it, so you're gonna be put in a box and you're never gonna amount to anything,
right.
and it's gonna hold you back. When in reality, it could open up the world to you, because now we know that we need to do things a little
Mhm.
differently for you to succeed.
Exactly. And yeah, that's what we had to do. I had to get accommodations. I had to go to a different school and I had to repeat kindergarten again. But having those services when I was young is what really helped me to be successful in life. We knew that I wasn't going to be a mathematician, as I said, but I understood when I went to college, okay, that was a big thing in determining what kind of programs I wanted to study. I knew if anytime I encountered math, it was going in science, it was going to give me an issue. But we also discovered that I could read really well with expression. I have a little bit of trouble with comprehension, but and that just encouraged me to be able to do a lot. And I could be in regular ed classes for science and social studies and English eventually. And just that's what that allowed me. But if I didn't have a lot of those services, I don't think that I would be where I'm at today. And the accommodations, even when I was in regular ed, I still had to have a test read aloud to me. I still had to have that extra time. And I carried a lot of those into college with accommodations.
Very cool. I love this conversation so much. I have so like
Mhm.
So I am a holistic wellness coach, and I've
Yeah.
helped a lot of people lose weight over time. And I've gotten a
Hmm.
lot of questions about like, what is this podcast of yours about? Like, I thought you were about weight loss and health. Like, why are we talking about like ADHD and mental
Hmm.
health and this or that? And it's like you're missing the picture, because all
Yep.
of these things that you just talked about, if they're just out there
Yeah.
haphazardly happening, it's so hard to take care of yourself if you don't treat yourself as a whole person. And these are the pieces that make people whole people. Like, you can't
Right.
remove the fact that you have a learning disability or that you have
Right.
dexterity issues and
Hmm.
only focus on exercise and weightlifting and eating
Yeah,
and feel like a
exactly.
whole healthy person. Like, you've got to learn how to identify and incorporate all of it so that you just thrive holistically. And so I love this conversation so much. I think it's so overlooked.
Yeah, definitely. And it's about the whole person. And I think that that's something I see a lot with our students in school. We might have a student that comes in and there might be a lot of stuff going on at home. And they might come in and then we see as a behavior. And then until we go in and look at what's really going on, we can't educate the student. We can't do anything with them
Right.
until we figure out, okay, sometimes did you eat anything today? Or
Ding, ding,
yeah, they
ding,
complain
ding.
about having the headache or the stomach ache. And sometimes I'll be like, usually the first question I'll ask did you eat breakfast this morning? And sometimes
Yes.
it's no, I didn't eat breakfast. Or they come in and they're upset, and you get a chance, rather than going in and yelling at them, we all sit down and say, it sounds like you're having a hard day. What's going on? And sometimes they'll tell you about some stuff that might have happened at home. Maybe the dad might be in jail, somebody might be in rehab, and you get that chance to go in and see, okay, what is going on and how can we help them?
Yes.
And sometimes they
Noticing
don't want to talk about it too, and that's okay. Yeah.
noticing someone that might be a little bit more fidgety today or having a
Hmm.
harder time thinking, and even just asking
Yeah.
questions, simple questions like, okay, did you have breakfast? I did. Well, what did you
Yep.
eat? And realizing that they
Hmm.
changed something in their breakfast and that food is causing a chemical
Yeah.
reaction in their body, little bodies, that is causing everything to go haywire. And then it's like, oh, well, let's try something. Let's go back to the thing that you were eating when you had a really good day and see what
Right.
happens. And it's like
Yeah.
getting really curious about all those
Hmm.
different pieces, because some people, especially if you have a disability, whether it's
Hmm.
ADHD or a learning disability, they're exasperated by certain foods.
Yeah,
They can be
exactly.
triggered,
Yep.
and so like getting curious about that.
Right, and seeing what they are and being able to make suggestions, and also finding out if they have food insecurity in their house. A lot of times we'll do a weekend backpack program for students who are in elementary school. And that's to provide things that they're able to, ready-made things that they can do. Like a lot of times fruit cups are a big thing. And they might even do some other processed stuff, but it's making sure they have that. And I can remember when I would donate to the program, I would try to do the healthier things like raisins and having unsweetened applesauce. That way I knew they were getting something that had a little more nutrition than just the
Something
other
more
things.
than just a block of red 40.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
And then we
because a lot
wonder why people can't sit still and think straight.
yeah, exactly, because that is so true. And then sometimes with ADHD too, we can see the opposite. We'll have kids that might be off a lot of their meds, and then they can't focus. And I've never done this myself, but sometimes we'll give them a cup. Some people will give them a cup of coffee or something to have that. And that's then they can focus. And I think it's just knowing how those things affect you and your child is so important to be able to know that.
And which goes back to what you saying, which was like getting
Hmm.
curious about those
Yeah.
changes, those differences,
Hmm.
and kind of just trial and error. All right, that didn't
Yeah,
work. Let's try something else.
exactly. Yeah.
Now, in the world of like learning disabilities and other
Hmm.
hidden disabilities, like what do you wish the everyday person that you might come across in the street knew?
I wish
Is there
that a
something
lot
you
of people
struck like
knew that that they definitely exist and you can't see every disability, because a lot of times when I tell people I have a learning disability, people think I can't learn. And I even see the limitations people place that I've had in my life in the professional places. I can remember in high school, I had a learning support teacher I told me, I don't think you can go to college because of your math abilities, and suggested a trade school. And nothing there interested me. And I saw a lot of my peers that have gone that direction. And some of them, they didn't go and use what they went to a vocational school for. Some of them really went on and just had really struggle in life. And I've also had that whenever I was getting evaluated to get accommodations for college, a psychiatrist told me, you're never going to go beyond a community college.
hmm,
And they told me, well, based upon your scores, you're not going to be able to do news articles or be able to achieve a lot of these dreams. So I think a lot of times we have that end where we look at, oh, here's the problem, not the potential. And then I think sometimes people will tell me I don't look like I'm disabled. And we have to explain, you can't see every disability. And I just think there's just such a stigma surrounding them.
I am just my brain is broken about especially educators,
Hmm.
the lack of awareness there and compassion, because you know what's true, and this is nothing like this is true for
Hmm.
just humanity, is that educators don't want to hear this, but most successful business owners and entrepreneurs who go on to build great
Mhm.
companies that change the world, they were C students, or the students that couldn't sit still or think in a straight line. And they were the ones that were getting discounted because they weren't the top of the class and they weren't getting high SAT scores and going
Mhm.
off to grad school. And like realizing that there's not one path to success and that there is no reason to count anyone out of the race, that there is a workaround for every human to get where they want to go.
Exactly, and it's just making those wise choices and finding out what you wanna do and finding a way to do it. I think that's yeah, exactly, and a lot of the ones who are really great business owners might be the ones that had to think of creative ways to do things that somebody else didn't have to do.
Yeah. And that there's literally a place for everyone
Yep, agreed.
at the end of the day. Because there,
Mhm.
whether you have a disability or not, we all have specialties and things that we're good at,
Yep.
whether they bring passion or if we're just good at them and it is what it is, like that's a different story.
Yeah,
But in
exactly.
each of those skill sets is required for a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, I agree because the world needs a variety of thinkers. You can't have one, if one person thought um, one way and was good at everything, then nothing else would get done. So I think we just need a variety of people who can do different things.
And that is like a humanity concept, which is like
Hmm.
it's okay for us to think differently and to have different values and to do things differently than someone else, and us cohabitate together. Like you're not
Hmm.
wrong for wanting to do things your way,
Yep,
and I'm not
exactly.
wrong for wanting to do it mine. Is there a way we
Right.
can work together and make all of this work?
Hmm. Agreed, because there's just different ways to do things, and it's not necessarily uh, wrong or right. It's just a lot of the ways I have to do things are just because that's just the way that I have to do that. And yeah,
I have a
exactly.
very probably non-PC, but it's coming from a PC
Hmm.
question, but it's coming from a place of curiosity. Do
Hmm.
you find that you migrate towards people who also have disabilities? Like, do you find yourself in just groups of disabled people because they get it, or is that not a thing in your
Both.
world?
I have friends who have disabilities and they can understand what that experience is like. And then I have friends who don't have disabilities or ones that may not disclose their type of disability or may not view it from that way. But I think that sometimes when I'm with friends who aren't disabled, it's a little harder for them to sometimes understand what life is like. But when I'm with people that understand that, and they both add value. It's definitely great to have a wide variety of people in my life. And it's also education too. I can remember I'm also not able to do escalators with my visual perception, and I just cannot get the concept to do it safely. I can see the stairs, but I don't know when to step on or to step off.
The trigger
Yeah.
between the
Yeah.
coordination of
Yeah. So I use the elevator, or I prefer if they have steps. But I was in uh, a store with a friend where they had an escalator and they were ready to go up there. And I said, "Oh, I'll see you at the top. I'm going to go get the elevator." And she goes, "I always forget that you have this disability and you can't do it." And I said, "Oh, it's no big deal." And she goes, "You just accept this. You just accept that this is your life." And I'm like, "Well, it is." I mean, I said
Do
that
you
it's
feel like that's a funny thing to feel like someone's missing out on life because they're not using the escalator?
not. And yeah, or just I think it was just that you just go and you just go with it. And I'm thinking, well, that's what I have to do. I mean, there's just things in my life and it
I'm laughing so hard right now because that's true of everyone, whether you have a
yeah,
diagnosable disability or not. We all
right.
just have to go with it when like things are uncomfortable or not for us.
Yeah, exactly. Just yeah, we all have to. I mean, everybody adapts. And I
Everyone
also
adapts.
Yeah, we have to adapt to a lot of things. But I can also remember I had a professor when I was in college that wanted to show that people without disabilities have limitations too. And one of the ways she did that was there was a girl in our class that talked about she was a mom, and she said, I don't want to have a job where I can't be in there to tuck my child in at night, or to be home with my nearby where my kid is, or with a lot of traveling. And she said, see, even people that don't have disabilities have limitations on their lives too. We all have things that can be hard for us, or things that we just simply can't do.
That we have to navigate or juggle
Hmm.
or say no thank
Yep.
you, that's not for us, or do even
Yeah,
when it makes us uncomfortable and stretches us a little bit. Like
exactly. Yeah,
that's just part of the human experience.
right. I agree.
Oh, well, part of the reason I had asked you if you found yourself migrating towards people who also had disabilities was
Yeah.
I was talking with a friend this morning. We were
Hmm.
having a chat about ADHD, and she was like, I
Hmm.
keep feeling like I keep finding myself in circles of friends who also have ADHD,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's not helping me grow in areas that I need to strengthen because we're all the
Right.
same and everyone's enabling me
Yeah.
to that it's okay and it's the way your brain work, when really I just want to strengthen these other skills that maybe
Yeah.
neurotypical people come easily. And it came back to the conversation of it's human nature to migrate towards people who are similar to you
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
assimilation, it's welcoming, it's survival. We're
Right.
tribal beings. And so
Uh-huh.
that was what triggered that question, just in
Well,
case
sure. No,
you.
I mean, I definitely can find, yeah, I think that is true. A lot of what I do see maybe is a lot of my friends don't always have disabilities, or not as open with them. But
Hmm.
I do get a lot of people who are creative. We definitely, like, I met them in a writing group. We still are friends today. A lot of them, we're definitely active in our art center. So I think that I can see that aspect of myself too.
Yeah.
And it's also really common. A lot of people have a learning disability or some kind of disability, but they don't want to talk about, and that's okay. I kind of give that space for someone who doesn't always want to share. But learning disabilities are extremely common. 1 in 5 people have them. So even in those groups where somebody may not want to talk about it, or may
One
not
in
come out with
five.
that, you're
That's a
going to
cool
be,
statistic.
yeah, you're going to find somebody that has that. And I
Now,
found that to be true, because I was at a writing group and I shared about having a disability. These were with people that were strangers. And I had people that would go around the room and they were saying, that's me. That's my story. And I counted with my very limited counting skills, and it was 1 in 5. Yeah, people
one
had
in
that.
five. Have more patience, people. Be more
Yeah,
patient. Be more understanding because whether it's a disability or not, like
yeah,
you just don't know who's having a bad day. You don't know what the snowball effect was. You don't
yeah,
know that your smile could completely change a human's perception of the world and
exactly.
humanity for the day.
Yep.
Now, Michelle, when we talk about learning disabilities,
Yeah.
and what do you think the next step for the world is for helping people with disabilities assimilate into society a little easier? Like, where do you see the biggest roadblock right now? And even what do you think the solution is?
Sometimes the biggest roadblock that a lot of people might come into is just having people that are understanding and providing the accommodations that people will need. A lot of times, uh, it can be really difficult for somebody might think, oh, I have an employee that has a disability. How do I provide a learning disability? How do I provide the accommodations? And it can be done. I'm proof of that. It's just it takes a lot of planning and having a working relationship. All the kids know, whenever I come in, I cannot help you with your math, but I can help them with other things. And a lot of times, a workplace might consider a disability, especially a learning disability, as a liability rather than an asset to a company or a school. And really, when a person is accommodated and they have a disability, they provide so much more for that place. They provide the creative thinking, they provide an understanding. And I think it's one of the things we need to do is to go in and find out what the person needs on an individual level. Some people might need, like I do not give me a math class, but other people might need documents presented in a different way, or they might need flexible time. It just really depends on the person and the disability. And I also think that we need to teach people how to advocate for themselves.
Yes.
That is so key, because if I don't go in and speak up and tell somebody I can't do math, people assume, oh, you have a bachelor's degree or you're applying for this job, you should be able to do it. And it can be really hard. Sometimes there are situations where people expect that out of me and I can't do that. And that can be difficult, but it's up
And
to me to speak up for myself.
advocating for yourself in a way where it's a win for everyone.
Yep, exactly.
Like, and this could, I don't know, maybe this is cancels me today, I don't know, but like, and I think it's true for everything, that
Yeah.
people think that they're owed something, and it's like, you have to, as the employer, you have to provide blah 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 blah, and I'm not, and they get really combative about it. No
Yeah.
one wants to work with a combative person,
No, they
and
don't.
at the same time, no one wants to work for someone who isn't willing to help them be successful,
Yeah,
period, whether
exactly.
you have a disability or not. Like, this is,
Right.
work needs to be symbiotic. Like, I'm going
Mhm.
to provide you a skill in exchange for pay, and you're going to give me pay in exchange for this skill that's going to help the business run. So like,
Right.
advocating for yourself in a way that it's a win-win for everyone, I think is really important, a skill that every human needs to get better at and practice
Exactly.
more.
Right. I agree. And it takes time too, because you don't want to come in and be combative. I mean, or yell. And I had to learn that the hard way myself when I had demands where people didn't want to accommodate me. And luckily, I've learned how to ask for things. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons I learned when I was in college, was how to advocate for myself in a
Mhm.
positive way. And I really had a good experience if I was really calm and I just said, and I picked the time to talk to somebody, and I just said, well, I have a learning disability. These are the accommodations I'm going to need. And most people were very understanding about
It's
that.
like, oh, that's no big deal,
Yeah,
got you.
exactly. And yeah, no big deal. We'll handle that. And it's just going in and just being really open, but also being nice about things too, and just being calm. I think sometimes if you come in and you're combative or you're upset, that can be really difficult for somebody because that gives a really bad image. But I think sometimes if you go in and you're just showing all the things that you can do, I think that's another thing too.
And
And
the
yeah.
combative, it has nothing to do when you come into the conversation combative like
Hmm.
that, which I think comes
Yeah.
out of just like protection and boundaries of
Hmm.
being screwed so many times that you just
Yeah.
like coming in like a bulldozer. But remembering that like the person on the other side of the table doesn't want to receive that energy. So now you
Right.
coming to the table completely charged like a bulldozer puts
Yeah.
their defenses up, and then there we create resistance. And it's like
Exactly.
it's no different than me telling people, sharing, like, if they ask me to do something, stand right here while I put it in my calendar, because if you move,
Hmm.
if you breathe wrong and it doesn't get in here, it's not happening. Like, it's no
Right.
different that like then those things, those are things I've learned that I need to be successful. I need you to stand there. You want to make this appointment with me? Great. Let's have coffee next week. But I need you to
Yeah.
stand there while I put it in my phone, because I've learned that if we don't do that, I forget.
Right.
And like,
Yeah.
we all have little things that
Right.
we need other people to help us with.
Exactly. And everybody needs some kind of help and some kind of assistance. And I think a lot of it too is you have to go in with this wanting to educate people rather than have a fight. I can remember I was in a
Which can be
college course.
exhausting.
Yep, exactly. And this was a really life-changing moment. I can remember there was a boy in our class that didn't really have a lot of diversity, and he thought college was a really eye-opening experience. And the professor was asking later on in the course, well, what would you do if somebody was making fun of somebody with a disability? And the kid said, I would go and I'd tell them off. And we had to explain to them, we appreciate that you want to stand up for somebody because it's not right to do that, but we're into educating people, not causing a lot of arguments and things. And I think that's been the key thing too. And also finding employers that were uh, disability friendly was also a big thing too. A lot of times people might have the label on them that they help people with disabilities, and they do great services for them. But when they get an employee that has a disability, sometimes they don't know what to do with learning disabilities. And I had some experiences with places that weren't really friendly, and they fired me because I couldn't do the job, which was fine. But then they tried telling me, "Oh, you must you did this on purpose to get unemployment." And I was like,
Who says
"No, I
that?
didn't."
Who says that? What is wrong with people?
Yeah, they thought that I did, and I was taking a couple buses because it was not local. And I can remember I got an attorney, and she looked over the evaluation, and she's like, nah, you're you definitely you have a disability, and confirm what I already knew. And then but I did win that one where they were able, yeah, I did get the unemployment, but that was,
See,
yeah.
now I get like if I have a disability and I know that my
Hmm.
processing times are delayed and it takes
Yeah,
me longer to accomplish things, I should not be applying for a position in a very fast paced,
yeah,
high
exactly.
demand, high
Hmm.
stress environment because I'm not the right fit for that company and they're not the right fit
Yep,
for me. So, like,
exactly.
knowing your audience of how you thrive and what kind of job and
Hmm.
career path is right for you, while also not limiting yourself because
Yeah.
you have a disability, it's a
Hmm.
balancing act.
It really is. And it's finding the right job too. I can also remember I was at a job interview after that incident, and I was really trying to find, or I think it might have been before, but I was trying to find just the right position. And I was talking about, I don't drive, I do take paratransit. And some people were like, well, you shouldn't say that in a job interview. But I found that sometimes I like to gauge if what's going to happen. And the woman asked me, "Well, what are you going to do if the bus is late? How do you think we're supposed to handle it?" And I thought, "Oh, this okay, this is definitely not where I work at." And it was really confirmed when she looked at my resume, and she said, "It shows here that you work with students that have disabilities." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, we have no children with disabilities at our center." And I thought, "Yeah,
This
this
isn't for
isn't
me.
the job for me."
I think that's a really important life skill for everyone is
Mhm.
that we have I love that we have gone everywhere in this conversation and that we've landed on jobs now. But I think it's a really important skill for everyone that when you're going into an interview, you're interviewing each other.
Yeah.
Like the
Mhm.
employer is seeing if you're a good fit for their company and you're seeing if the company is a good fit for you.
Exact. Yep. Exact. Yeah. And yeah, that's exactly what you have
It's
to
a
do. You have
mutual
to look in.
interview, in my opinion. And it
Yeah,
like
exactly. You have to look at it where if this is going to be, you're going to be a good fit, and if they're going to be a good fit for you to work for. If I went into a job that required a lot of, processing and obviously driving, I couldn't do it. But if I go into something where I can still work with students, and I can still do what I love to do, it's a win-win.
I love this conversation so much. So many different like rabbit holes. Michelle, I always like to ask what does healthy mean to you because I think everyone is different and everyone's coming from a different perspective. And so I always like to get those different perspectives. So what how would you define healthy?
I think healthy is when you definitely mind, body, and spirit. It's going through the whole thing. It's definitely someone has a healthy body, has a healthy mind, and is working towards making sure that they are.
Oh, I love that. Have you always had that mentality or is that something you've developed as you have grown wiser?
I think it's something as I developed, because I can remember whenever I was focusing on what I couldn't do and I just wanted to get rid of the disability, I was not very positive. I was very negative, and slowly through finding my way of thinking of what I could do and all those possibilities, that's when I started to have a healthier mindset.
So good. Are there certain things that you do every day to make sure that you're set up for success?
I love to make sure I do a lot of things that work, like with having the disability. That's definitely, it's always looking for new things that I can do for that. Having a digital watch so I know what time it is. I also do a daily workout just to kind of get myself physically where I need to be at, and mentally too. I think that helps out as well. And I know how to handle situations that might come up with the disability, breaking things into small chunks with information, and just trying not to get overwhelmed when I'm in a situation that's really difficult for me, and just taking it one step at a time.
I have that tattooed on my body. You can't really see it on YouTube, but it says one step at a time
Yeah.
in Disney
Like,
font.
yep.
It's my life motto. We're going to do this one step at a time. Michelle,
Exactly.
such a good chat. Is there anything that you have on your heart right now that maybe we didn't share, or any final words you want to leave our listener with?
I just want to encourage people to know what they want to do and to be able to find a way to do it, and to know the success doesn't always come in the package that you expected, but sometimes it comes in something even better.
That's so good. That you should get that on a shirt. You should add that to your shop. So good.
There we go.
How do people connect with you outside of the show if they want to like further their relationship or learn more?
Sure. You can find me at my blog, michellesmission.net, and I'm also on Facebook and Instagram.
Cool. What's your handle?
Steiner 7260, I believe. I have to,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll drop it in the show notes so people
Thank
can
you.
find you. Awesome. Well, Michelle, thank you for being here today. I really hope that um someone was able to take away such a good nugget, that we opened their mind in a different direction. Maybe it made them feel less alone if they are having a learning disability. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be with us today. So, everyone, with that, that's Two Humans Talking. See you next time. Bye.